join you.
Let's see these.
You want me to see?
I'll go up in there. Just give them a second, see if it would pop up.
Oh,
on
I
the
thought
screen.
it was you that was,
Nope.
that's all.
Nope. Nobody's on camera on our Zoom here. Man, thanks, sir. One click, there we go. That's all it took, there we go. Looking right in there. We're good to go.
Oh. Hey, look at that. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order of the City of Monona Finance and Personnel Committee, Monday, June 16th, 2025. Obviously have the roll. We need to call it.
You know, I call it Alderwood.
Here.
Alder DePool is excused. Mayor Moore.
Here. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from January 6th, 2025, May 5th, 2025, and June 2nd, 2025?
I move approval of all three sets.
Okay, and I second. Any changes to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, minutes are approved. We have no appearances this evening. We have no unfinished business this evening. That takes us to 6, new business A, consideration of resolution 25-6-2813, approving a sanitary sewer rate increase.
I would ask if we could
That's right.
attempt to
Oh,
hold
that's
this one
right.
off
We're
till
gonna
the
hold-
end, and we're
I was
hoping
gonna-
Director Hauneker can make, he's
Yep,
finished with
okay.
a doctor's appointment, I believe.
Got
so.
it, got it. Yep, so we'll go to number 6B, consideration of resolution 25-6-2814, approval of the acquisition, removal, and transfer of solar panels from the Public Works roof to other city facilities. There he is. Do I have a motion?
I guess I'd like to discuss it, unless, I mean,
I thought we would discuss it after we put it on the table.
okay, well, I don't want to do, so I'll move to not approve it, how's that?
You'll move to not approve it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then, I mean, we can, if you would rather not make a motion first, to discuss it first, we can do that.
Either way, I
Okay,
mean, we're just making a recommendation, so it's gonna go on to council, whether we say yea or nay.
correct.
So,
But,
I mean, I don't have a problem with, you know, obviously the council's gonna have the final word.
right,
So, okay, I'll make a motion to advance this to the city council without recommendation.
Yeah, that's fair. You can
Okay.
do that.
okay, I
If
can
you're
second,
willing to second it.
I can second that.
Okay.
Are you aware that there's, were you able to get the new information out to the city council?
I
before?
did receive it. It was detailed enough that I felt it would be better to just discuss it
Okay,
rather than send it out, because it would just cause, I think, more confusion than.
okay,
So we did get a very detailed response from Kurt, and then we have Brad has joined us as well. Just, I think the email I think I sent this afternoon, kind of really looking at three options here in terms of really how we phrased the decision, I think, on this. One was to simply to not acquire the panels and allow Solar Legacy simply to remove them off the
Mhm.
building, off of this particular facility.
Mhm.
And then essentially that would be done. No other work from the city would be required. Option two was to kind of maybe acquire them for a cost of $10,000. The resolution says $40,000, although we received a clarifying email from Kurt, so that cost is actually about $10,000. However, to actually deploy those panels, there's a to be determined capital cost that would be required as we go forward. In addition, probably some additional looking at exactly how much energy could be utilized and what would be the most efficient deployment of those panels. And then the third option was simply going ahead and just selecting well 3 as an option to relocate these two just as a fixed site, and we believe would be the most appropriate spot. However, there is still considerable capital costs that would be required in terms of including ground mounting equipment. There's an undetermined amount of maintenance that would be required at this point for actual redeploying those. We don't really have that much information at this point. We have enough we kind of wanted to make sure to at least bring it forward. The reason it is bringing forward tonight, and it is actually started council, we do have to get the panels off of the Public Works garage prior to the end of June here, essentially,
Right.
to allow the roof project to move forward. So that is why it is kind of being brought forward today, and it's still with not a lot of information that still needs to be kind of collected to really evaluate this fully. Certainly available to answer any questions. And if Brad wants to give a quick summary of his memo that he provided, or if anybody has any questions on that, I think appropriately, Brad was conservative in his estimates, but he did cite where he got his numbers from, so he has those. He has that information available. If anybody had any questions on those items.
Brad, since you're already on, is there anything that you'd like to add? I mean, I know the motion on the floor is to not make a recommendation, but
Okay.
But we're in the discussion mode. So, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, so I just emailed Doug back. Sorry, Doug, I was at the golf outing today, so I apologize for not being able to get back to you.
That's okay.
I mean, Neil's right. There are three options here. Really, the cheapest option, there is a no-cost option for the city, and it basically is we ask them, they have to remove the panels regardless, and we just tell them that we don't want to purchase them, and that's fine. And the city figures out something to do in the years coming once the roof is intact, the warranties are up and no longer valid, and we can put whatever we want to on the rooftop there at the garage. We do have space at well 3 if the city wanted to do a ground-mounted array. We can. It's just there is a capital cost to do so. So.
Right.
10,000 is not much for the amount of solar panels that we're going to be getting. I apologize for the noise. Honestly, you're getting a good amount for that investment.
Mm-hmm.
It is tempting, but once you have them, and you have to do something with them, and then and there is where the costs come in. So it's really, if you want to have them, we can purchase them. We'll have to store them. We'll have to keep them in good shape, which is, something that we can do. We don't really have the room inside of any of our facilities to store them inside at this point. So they may have to be outside under tarps or something like that. That is something to consider. So it's a good deal. It's a bargain deal, but they are used pieces of equipment. So that's also something to consider. I'm not saying it's a difficult decision, but there are many facets to it, right?
Right. And do we know, do we know how long it would be before we could get a reasonable estimate of what it would cost to put it at well 3?
Yeah, we can get a consultant in to spec out essentially what would be like a biddable project, because we'll have to figure out a way to get the infrastructure in the ground to get them installed and up and running properly. And we'll have to figure out the net metering contract with MG&E and the permitting and all of that. So we can do it. We can get all those prices this year still if you wanted.
Okay. So it's not like we're putting these in storage for a couple of years. We could conceivably have it. We would know what that cost is conceivably by the time we're voting on the capital budget or debating the capital budget.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, we could get prices by then.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
And just a note, Mayor, I think the one challenge is obviously if we were going to make the investment in some sort of ground mounting system, we would want to make sure, knowing we're probably looking at buying new panels in 3 to 5 years for our various rooftops.
Yep.
That if we wanted to use that same system on the ground mount, that it would be, that infrastructure would be able to hold our new panels as well as our existing ones. So we didn't have to put them in for 5 years, not wait for the full return, and then not be able to use them beyond the 5 years if that was the shortest term that they lasted, so.
All right, well, they said we have the motion on the floor, so with that,
Well, I mean, my concern is it seems like we would have to spend about $80,000 or so to reuse these, to buy and then reuse the panels that may, like, for 10 years.
right,
It could be a little bit longer, could be shorter, and a lot of staff time to make that happen. And it just doesn't make, to me, the savings of I think Brad said in his email he just sent was about $5,000 a year that we save and not, by generating that energy and not buying it from Energy&E. But, $5,000 a year versus an $80,000 investment
right.
for 10 years, it doesn't add up.
I
thought useful life was 20 years, so that's where I'm confused when you saying 10 years.
Yeah, I think,
The remaining life or total life?
Remaining life.
let me see, I think let me just fire up this last note we had from Mr. Reinhold at Legacy Solar. Let's see here. What did he say? So I believe he said with some investment in some of the other equipment, the inverters and so forth, he says that it means at least 50% of the solar panels you start with today would still be producing power in 20 years. He goes, but the intensity of that power would likely be about 0.5% lower each year. So a 400 watt solar panel in year 20 would likely still put out 90% of its original wattage, or 360 watts. So there is some degradation over time.
So, and Doug, I'm completely in agreement with you. When I first looked at the numbers, I was like, to me, it was a no-brainer.
Right.
But that was when it was 40,000 as opposed to 10,000.
Right.
And also, from what I understand, we're currently sending power back to MG&E on well number 3. That we're not, because it burns a lot more electricity than the solar that's on there now. So conceivably, it would be a lot more than or at least more than the 5,000 per month that we would be losing, because if we put it over at well 3, it could be, we don't know what it could be, but we know it's going to be more than where it is now.
How is it more? I don't understand.
Well, I mean, in terms of
You're buying
we have the probability, and Brad probably has a comment on this too. There's a probability that we would be able to utilize more of the electricity that we generate from the existing panels behind the meter
Okay.
versus in the Public Works garage right now, we're generating more than we use, so that just gets back essentially for free to MG&E practically in terms of we don't use it, so it just gets put back on the grid. So that calculation, I think Brad has done some rough calculations on that, but we haven't fully really got down. I know certainly that to the level that Mark would be, Mark would agree with the financing of it totally at this point either, so.
Right, so which is why I was asking how long would it take us to try to figure that out? Because if in fact we're giving X number of kilowatts back, valued at X, valued at Y to MG&E every month because we're not using it all on well number 3, and by putting it over to well number 3, we would be or not using it all at Public Works.
We should be
And
more
if
efficient
we put
usage
it over to well
yeah.
3, we would be using it all, then conceivably the amount that we could save would be a lot higher than 5,000
Mark,
or higher.
did you have something?
No, I mean,
Okay.
I agree. I think Dan said that's the most heavily used well,
Yeah,
and there's pumps run a lot.
yeah,
So like you said, when it goes back into the system, we basically get zero money from it. So like you're saying, we
Right.
could get more money, but we don't know what that number is. So we'd have to calculate all that.
Go ahead, Brad's got his hand up, yep.
Yeah, Brad?
Yeah, so if you just a logical approach to it, right? You think about when the well is pumping water, it's when we're using more water in the system, and that's during the daytime, typically.
Right.
So during the daytime is when you're also producing the most electricity off of the solar panels.
Yeah.
So you're kind of supplementing all of that usage in the well during peak times. So you have the potential to really lower your demand of electricity from the grid, which is pretty ideal, especially for a well pump, a municipal well pump, a high capacity.
Yeah.
So that is one of the major advantages of upsizing the amount of solar production at well 3.
Right.
But in terms of ROI, which I know you guys are that's kind of what we're talking about, right? So
Right. Yeah.
the return on investment, that's a little tougher to calculate, and there's a lot that goes into that, and that would take a little bit more digging to
Sure.
get you guys those numbers, and have them be firm, right? Be real accurate, and we can proceed with that. So
Right.
maybe next meeting, well, I won't be at the next meeting, but the one after that, if that's okay, I could get you something, a good analysis by then, if that's okay.
It's perfectly fine with me. I mean, you know, and obviously we'll be discussing it again at the council meeting, but, yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, you know, is it worth, knowing that we have to take the panels off now, is it worth $10,000? Really, still not knowing, because we don't have all the figures we need. We don't know if it's gonna be a wash or closer to a wash. And is it worth the $10,000? If, you know, when they said 40,000, Doug,
Right.
I was like, I'm not willing to spend 40, but 10, it's pretty reasonable to play it out a few more weeks,
Okay.
you know, maybe.
Well, if we can
That's-
figure out a way that it's, you know, makes financial sense,
Right,
I don't have a problem with it. I just, you
Right.
know, even though it's solar panels, like, we still have to use our math side of our head too.
Yep.
I completely agree. So that's why I'm saying, I mean, that was the first thing that I said to Brad, as he knows too in emails, is like, you know, there's no ROI here, why would we do this? And he said, exactly, that's why I'm not recommending it
Yeah, and I think that,
in emails. But that was before, that was when it was 40,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
but I would
and-
just throw in there, Mayor, I think
Yeah.
the concern is the capital cost in terms of the ground mounting
Yeah.
system going forward. That would be,
Right,
that's the cost that we would need to factor in to make sure that we're able to recover when we have them up and operating long enough
Right.
for it to make sense.
yeah,
That's, I think, the real crux of what we really kind of need to get
Yeah.
down to.
yeah,
So, I mean, maybe if there's I did ask if, you know, if we took them down and we stored them, we just did, you know, one row at a time or 1 year, I mean, maybe there's a way to minimize that cost and make sure it's doing what we want it to do before we just jump in and put them all in order ground mount panels for all of the panels. I mean, there's probably some phasing options we could look at. You know, certainly the easiest and I think the safest route is to not proceed. Just count on us getting nice new panels in 3 to 5 years, putting them back up on the roof. I mean, that's probably the safest, and we'll get the biggest bang for our buck, because those will be brand new panels, maximum life on those new ones.
Right.
Because then we'll be back in probably 5 years again, deciding, okay, do we keep running with the old ones? Do we replace them with the new ones? Do we? So we're kind of putting off that
Yeah.
discussion on that. So
On the other
Um,
hand, if we don't have those panels on the public works roof until all the roofs are ready to go, which we don't know, but it's probably gonna be more than a few years before we have all the roofs ready to go. It's gonna be a loss of, you were saying, Dan thinks it's 5,500 per
Okay.
month
I think Brad wasn't it
Brad,
around, yeah,
5,500
5,000,
per month.
5,500 a month.
that we would be losing. So it's, you know,
It's rent and demand
Yeah.
charge back from the genie, I think.
Basically, for the Public Works Garage, right now, with the solar array, we save $5,500-ish a month,
right,
or not a month, I'm sorry, a year, a year.
It's a year.
A year.
It's a year.
5,500 a year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was 5,000
No.
a
No.
month.
No, so per year, we save about $5,500 by not paying MG&E for the same amount of electricity
Got it.
as what we
Okay.
get from
Well,
the
that makes it
array.
even.
Yeah.
And that's
that-
only if it's a third-party system, so that's when we're allowed to do the rec buyback
Right,
and the lease. They have to pay us the lease, too.
Right.
So when we own it, right? So there's a voided cost there, but
Yep.
there's also the maintenance. So
Right, exactly.
Well, I
Okay.
mean, to me, it would be nice to get out of that complicated contract that we've been in for the last, whatever, 10 years.
Yeah.
It's for,
Yeah.
I guess, 14 years.
yep,
Yeah, we are, I believe, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, we are the only community, I think, that has this lease
because
arrangement
we were
with
the
them.
first.
Yeah, so they did it because they wanted to get the project up and running, and yeah, so.
But I think PSC changed their rules.
Right,
after.
exactly. We were the first
what
and they
happened.
changed the rules, so, all right.
PSC changed the rules and Bill Cole figured out a way to make it work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, great. Well, we have a motion on the floor. Shall we take a vote?
Yep.
Was that a yes?
Yes, sorry.
I'm voting yes as well. Elaine? Thank you. That takes us to, should we go back up to 6A, consideration of resolution 25-6-2813, approving sanitary sewer rate increase. Mark?
Yeah. So what I'm requesting is a 20% rate increase in the sewer utilities. It's because of a couple of reasons. One's we have revenue bonds outstanding, and our revenues minus expenditures have to be the net earnings has to be 1.25 of the future debt service, the highest one. And currently, because of 3 issues, it's kind of fallen behind that. So we need to increase that to make sure we're in requirement of our debt service our debt covenants that we have in our revenue bonds. The 3 reasons why we need an increase is Madison Metro increases, our increases to our debt service, and basically a flat or slightly increase or decrease, a slightly decrease in the usage. So that's causing us to not meet our requirements. Madison Metro is probably one of the driving forces, the biggest driving force around. I included a sheet in here that shows kind of what's happening in 2023 and 2024. Together between the 2 years, they increased, our charge to us increased 33%, almost $284,000 in 2 years. And they usually give us, 48% increase, depends on the year, what an average is. It's increased. We've been able to keep from increasing rates just because we had low debt service. And our rates were kind of structured so that we didn't have to increase them every time, every year. But last year, it really hurt us. In 2024, for Madison Metro, what they thought Metro thought it was going to be with their increase was going to be $1 million. What 24 ended up being is $1.1 million, creating a loss in the sewer utility. So we basically lost. We had a loss of about $120,000 in the sewer utility last year, just solely because of Madison.
To make that up, you mean?
We had in our income statement, we had a loss of about 100. So we do, so this year, in 2025, they thought it's going to be a little less than that. the 1,113,000, but just based on current activities, I'm sure it's going to be a little bit higher than that. So I've been, for the life of me, trying to figure out what's going on with Madison Metro. I gone through their invoices. I kind of narrowed down. There's some issues. I agree. So we get a quarter every bill. I know I'm kind of going off here, but Madison Metro. Well, on top of that, each year, Madison Metro's board, and I believe is majority of City of Madison, and we have some members on there as far as the Dane County, just villages and cities, but I think Madison outnumbers us. And as far as the voting, I don't know if that makes a difference or not in the end. But there's usually an increase every year, regardless. We're not the only one in this situation of the other communities. But I've been trying to work with somebody from Madison Metro, just trying to understand our bills. Because I'm struggling to understand them, why,
It's a crazy increase 2 years in a row.
yeah, why the crazy flow increases. Well, basically what Madison Metro does, so one week out of a quarter, they'll monitor our flows and stuff like that, and they'll take that 1 week and you use that as an average for the entire month. So if they take it during a really rainy week, I mean, it could be a lot higher than it actually was for that quarter. There's those situations. But there's like 3 area quadrants that and their meter stations that are causing the biggest impact. It's the Midmore lift monitoring area, the Birch Haven monitoring area, and the River Place. Those have been really increasing a lot compared to the average. All the other monitoring is probably 15 to 20. They're all pretty consistent, even during the rainy times now. But those 3 quadrants, they're called, the 3 monitoring areas, they really have I just know there's a lot of issues. I mean, they're really increasing. I don't know why.
You're saying the flow is increasing through those?
Through those 3, it's really dramatic. I'm not sure why. They told me it's because of the lake levels, and it kind of does match a little bit with the lake levels. So it's I&I kind of getting in there. We also have a factor of 1.3, so they're saying that 30% of the flow is coming from non-connected parcels, which I can't figure out. So I've asked Brad to get a map of what the monitoring areas are that's covering. You got this factor, it's added in there, and I think that's increasing it. But in general, our flows have really increased. It really increased 3rd and 4th quarter last year. That really put us over the top. And just kind of studying them and studying the difference in the solids and nitrates, they're all over. I mean, 1 minute could be a dry month or dry time or lower flows, and the solids are really high, and maybe it's correlated. If the flows are really high, sometimes the solids are really low, so I imagine the water getting in there. But just trying to understand these Madison Metro ones, I still got to do a lot more digging into it and try to get a better understanding. But I've been working with Metro, and they've been helping me a lot try to understand it. But in general, I mean, just the percentage is just going up and up, and it's the point that our rates can't cover it. We had our rates were going to cover last year. We wouldn't have a loss. It went up more than we expected, over 100-some thousand, so that caused the loss. So now we got to increase our rates. So that's the major reason. The other reason is our principal and interest, because we had some large borrowings just recently. We did some substations, and that increased our debt service by a little over 100,000. And the problem we're having with our rate staying, or usage staying the same, that 100,000, we got to come up with somewhere too. So we got to increase our rates to come with that extra 100,000. So that's what's driving these. Both of these are kind of driving the reason for the 20% increase in our rates. The usage is staying flat, even with. I know there's a couple apartments coming in. Even with that, the usage still is fairly flat. They're just slight increases over the last couple of years. So we have to increase that to cover our debt service too. Over 100,000, raise $100,000 worth of revenue for that, and over $100,000 from Madison Metro too, so that's causing the rate increase. With that, we will make our requirements for the revenue bonds to 1.25. I put in a schedule in here that shows if we didn't increase it, we wouldn't make our requirements at all, and then we wouldn't be in compliance with our debt covenants, and that would affect our rates, or bond ratings for that. Their bond rating's not the same as, we don't get the same rating as we do in the city, it's just
Yeah.
different. It's always gonna be a lot lower than the city rating. But we do need to make sure we make our bond requirements.
So, Mark, if, what you're basically saying is, if I'm hearing you correctly, is we need to, obviously because of these increases, we need to increase our rates, but you're not giving up on getting to the bottom of, we're still peeling the onion, because when we first talked about this, which was before I was elected.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an alarming increase.
Yeah.
2 years in a row,
Yeah.
and whether it's, and I remember us talking at that time, you were saying, you know, this is not Monona specific, they're hitting everybody,
Everybody's getting hit.
everybody's getting hit, and so there was some discussion about even Madison itself, as well as Monona and other communities joining together to like push back on MMSD and say, what the hey, like,
Yeah.
you gotta show us, you know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm in favor of going for the rate increase.
Yeah.
Because we
Yeah.
need, we have to do that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, if we could get at least a
Answers.
better understanding of why, I mean, do they have a rate that they charge us per gallon or something, or per 1,000
Yeah.
gallons?
Yeah.
Is that gone up?
That goes up every year. They increase that every year.
But not by 20%.
No. So like, the biggest issue has been the flows, trying to
Okay.
figure out, they say that's gone up a lot. But our usage is the same. They use that, one of the things they use.
That's the
So our
thing.
use is exactly the
Right.
same. So it's the,
Yeah,
so it's all the
the
other
flows
stuff
are
that they're-
higher, but the usage is the same, I don't
Right.
get
So
it, how
that's
that,
where I struggle with, and then trying
Yeah.
to figure out how all these flows are working. And they only monitor it once a week, 1 week out of a quarter.
right,
So they'll read it 1 week out of a quarter, and then they'll apply that for the whole quarter. So it depends. I mean, it could be good if it's a really low flow that week, I mean, but if it's a super high one, it's not normal, and then you have that applied to your whole quarter, and that just throws your numbers off. So I don't know if that's really
Huh.
the best way for them to do it, but that's how they do it.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of, they're not particularly accountable because they're not elected,
right.
they're just appointed, so.
And just a note on that, part of the reason that we're having the conversations that we are with MMSD is that they do have a new director now, executive director. Has been reaching out, and communication has improved. The Dane County Cities and Villages Association has kind of been on this for really
Okay.
about the last, I'd say, last budget season to now, and is still continuing to pursue it. In terms of keeping on top of it. The communication with the director has been considerably better. One factor that came up under the last director before they left was that there was a borrowing level that was not matching, that was higher than what the actual completed project level was. In terms of their borrowing more and for projects that they weren't getting done or weren't getting to. So they're levying for that, of course. But they're not, but they're just storing that cash until the next project comes in. So there was some concern over if you're having these significant jumps like this, you shouldn't be levying for that. You shouldn't
Right.
be doing that to us. You should be, kind of coming back. So I think I would expect that to be better this year in the capital budget, to be that the number of capital projects that they actually plan on getting done being lower, and hopefully then that borrowing number should be lower for the year. So we are seeing some improvement, I would say, in terms of how they're managing and taking a look at that right now. I think from our standpoint too, I think Dane County Cities and Villages Association is expecting more from their appointees onto that board. in terms of making sure that there's communication occurring and that information is getting shared. One thing we have discussed briefly that I presented to their directors, and I think they need like an administrators, finance directors group to talk about the borrowing, the rates, the financial end of things. And then they also need like maybe the utility managers, the public works directors, and those guys as a technical group to have an understanding over what the actual projects are, why they're doing them. Have they looked at alternatives, explaining those to those folks so they have a little bit better understanding of what those things are. So I think those two things hopefully are a good first step. There's a lot of work to be done. You start kind of peeling back the layers of the onion as we do on a lot of these things. You realize when the Clean Water Fund was out there, money was super cheap, so or either very low financing, or there were grants available, so they did all their upgrades all at once, which means all of their infrastructure is starting to fail or get in deteriorating at the same pace because they didn't keep up with that. So similar to some of the same things we face when we do our CIP, but obviously on a much larger scale and budget than we're looking at. So.
Yeah, last year, they gave us a number of what they thought it would be. The first 2 quarters were right on track, and then the third quarter really blew it away. And I got the bills here, I was kind of looking at it. There's a thing they have flows, gallons per day. You know, the first quarter, in Quad 50, which I believe is the Midmore one, in the first quarter we had 112 gallons per day. Got to the third quarter, 285. So, you know, that's over 100 some, and that's what's really,
Right.
was the reason why the bills was out of control for that quarter. Same with quadrant 53, which I believe is Birch Haven. You know, quarter 1 was 200. I'm just rounding up as 199 in quarter 1, and then quarter 3 is 370. So somewhere in between is it the I-9, is it the rain, is it they just took a read on that bad week and vice versa, and
Right.
one was super low and super high, and they applied it for the whole quarter, because that's what they do, they just take one read or one monitor 1 week and apply it for that whole quarter. So
Well-
that's the reason why we went $110,000 over
Right.
last year, because we were right on schedule, right on budget the first 2 quarters, and then the third quarter just
Right.
really saw the water.
Well, you know, I'm certainly with Doug in terms of I'm prepared to vote for an increase, because obviously we can't, it's our budget we need to take care of. But I just want to make sure that, you know, we're continuing, whoever we need to work with,
Mhm.
whether it's DCCVA or directly with MMSD or mayors or whoever it is, I just want to make sure that or public works departments or whatever, I want to make sure that we are pushing back big time, because it's just not sustainable.
Yeah, I think DCCVA could be a good resource, at
Yeah.
least one, if nothing else, just the networking.
Yeah.
But, you know, they could have it on as a discussion item at one of their meetings. And
Yeah. And I actually think this will be a regular discussion item, to be honest, Walter. This has
Yeah.
been enough coming up, and we've actually been very fortunate. Ms. Carolyn Cloud was the village president of Cottage Grove, who unfortunately wasn't reelected this last time around. She was kind of really taking the lead on engaging that with Matt Chiggy, their
Right.
administrator, on a lot of this. So Matt has continued to still kind of crunch numbers and so forth, but I think we do need to kind of keep that pressure up in terms of that level of communication and conversation with them, so.
Yeah,
So
well,
then
and I
we'll-
would say instead of I mean, I know you're not suggesting this, but I would also say that, to Doug's point, you know, it's not only about DCCVA talking about discussing it among themselves, but maybe they should have the new executive director or the people that are making the calls over at MMSD as, you know,
Okay.
invited to the
Yeah.
meeting, right?
Right.
To answer the questions.
They said they would come I talked to the guy,
Eric,
Yeah.
yeah.
they said somebody could come if we want them to do any
Right.
type of presentation.
And I would say, I think even one step beyond that, Mayor, I think the main opportunity that I think that DCCVA can help with that is actually communicating directly with their appointees on.
For sure.
On the board.
For
And
sure.
making sure that they're
Yeah.
representing the interest to the extent that they are.
Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, they can do what they want to do, understandably, but I think those appointees, we just need to make sure that they're
yeah,
keeping our best interests in mind, so.
yeah, because that's just, I mean, we all are sustaining increases, but that's crazy. All right, so with that, do we have a motion?
Move approval.
And I will second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Can I suggest, or do we need to be making, as it relates to 6C, which is consideration of resolution 25-6-2815, approving a budget amendment to acquire solar panels? I'm assuming that you want to make a motion
Yeah,
solely.
I'll move that we advance that to this council without recommendation.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and that takes us to number 6D, staff update on planner 1 position.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So the purpose of this item is sort of an informational update for the Finance Committee. You may recall that the 2025 operating budget included just over $10,000 for a planning intern. That position was not hired, and sort of one thing that we did as part of that was evaluated the staffing needs of the department specifically, and decided that some more experience in sort of an entry-level planner 1 position was probably more suited for the needs of the department and sort of the workload and demand that we had. So the proposal that's being put forward here for the planner 1, it is still an hourly part-time position, and so that side of things from the budget perspective is still remaining steady. It's really just the effectively the title and with that sort of some of the duties and expectations that would come with that. But the categorization of it, I've been assured, sort of talking with colleagues here at the city, there's no change to that. I did include within the with the memo that was in the packet, I included the job description as well, which sort of has lists the responsibilities that we'd be looking for. I think something I just wanted to call out specifically was number 1, and the reason it's there, number 1 as well, the duties, responsibilities, is citizen customer requests, inquiries. I think just the response time for that, the ability to have somebody there, effectively a counter service, throughout the day, whether that's this position or the assistant planner, Thor Jepson, and of course, in coordination with myself, but just having that better response and ability to do that, I think is really important. Technical assistance, professional experience, and such. So, as part of this, we did discuss funding sources and opportunities. That discussion took place with the city administrator, finance director, and the director of administrative services. Identified a few areas really that I think would better demonstrate and sort of charge the time spent on these items specifically. And I think building side of things, building permit applications, there's a lot more time that's going into the zoning review of those. And so there's a suggestion that some of that be, reallocated or divvied up towards the planning side of things, just to reflect the time that goes into getting those across the line, as well as the opportunity to once again review the zoning fees specifically. That's everything from zoning permits through to variances, GDPs, those kind of things. So the intention here would be to really help with the vertical integration of the department, freeing up capacity as well. So I included the information here. This was posted on May 20th. We closed the applications on June 9th. We're in the process right now of going through the interview process. I sort of included some numbers down here that I think through the end of the year, assuming a hire were to come on in the next couple of weeks, we'd be looking at sort of a couple thousand more than is currently budgeted in the operating budget, recognizing that would only be 6 months, not 12. But I would look to come through as part of the operating budget for 2026 to have that discussion. But also, again, I've sort of identified those areas that I think we can generate this from the fee side of things to be able to more than cover the costs of these as well. So was really here to present informationally to this body, but certainly happy to answer any questions.
One thing to add to, we also talk about, we will allocate some of the time to TIFs, so there will be some of that impact on there too, so.
So are you saying that you feel like you have this covered? Sorry, I would look at it on my computer again, but my computer is frozen. So are you saying that you think you can cover it in fees and with the 10,000 that was budgeted for the intern
Correct.
for 25?
Yes.
Are you also saying for 26? The whole year, we could cover it with additional fees?
That, I think, is still to be determined.
Okay.
And certainly as we come through for the 26 budget, I'd be prepared to have that discussion. I think in the interim, I'm looking to come forward with revised permit fees, in the hope of
Yeah.
limiting, any additional burden there. But certainly, I'm pretty confident just with the reallocation and sort of categorization, I would say, of the hours that are spent on these projects, that we can capture a lot of that from fees as well as from some of the TIF opportunities as well.
And you said the applications are already out?
We posted for this, closed on June 9th, and I think we had 30 total applicants, and a really generally very strong candidate pool as well. So we're about halfway through the interview process at the moment.
Okay. So the added cost next year would be about 14,000 over what we have budgeted this year, because it'd be the full year. So that's not that much because I think we really need it to help Doug and to help Thor to get things processed, but to help them maybe get a little better, let Doug get a better work-life balance. I think it's important.
Absolutely, Alder, I would
So,
fully agree. It's obviously, I think we're being very successful, I think, in terms of rolling out kind of how we're doing code enforcement right now. There's been a little bit of reallocation of that budget, and I think that's going to prove to be very successful, that one so far, but certainly that requires Director Plowman's oversight and making sure that that's being addressed and handled properly. We'll also be probably starting the comprehensive plan this fall. So in addition to everything else we'll be doing, having that extra staff time on is going to be critical, I think, to making sure that we have someone there who can, I think, instantly take those basic things off. I think the other aspect that we know that Doug is working on very diligently is trying to kind of streamline and adjust the building permit process. Again, so we need those type of things need to be on his radar screen to help supervise that process and supervise that consulting staff that we have to do that. So by getting this person on, that opens up the opportunity for really all of those areas to focus on. So.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Next slide.
Thank you both.
Number 6E, acceptance of general fund accounts payable, checks dated May 30 to June 12, 2025. Mark?
Yeah, I'll go quick here. There's not a lot of it's just ordinary business, but just a couple things I got marked to hit. Page 28, James Brennan. If you look at, there's three of the four line items in there, they're just maintenance contracts. As you can see, those contracts add up with us, but those are the three maintenance contracts we have. Not too far from down is McKay Nursery. As part of some tree replacements in the right of way. Page 34, Amazon. Between Amazon and we have Lake Ridge Bank. We do majority now of our purchases between the two. So that's what that page is. We do go through all those invoices and make sure they're coded correctly and they have the proper documentations. And the auditors, they always pick those too, so we are very aware of that. Page 36, Carico, just pool chemicals, 5,500 to start the year. Page 39, the very top, HM, structural demo, that was the cost for the property we had to take down, had a demo. We are billing, we will, since we get all the cost in, we'll bill that back to the owner. Like I said, page 40 is Lake Ridge Bank. And that's all I have.
Do I have a motion?
I will move to accept the bills payable, accounts payable.
I will second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, accepted. Any other staff updates?
I just want to say something really quick. We just turned in, so our assessor's board review is not closed officially yet, but they have to send our assessment numbers to the state. And in that state, they have to give our new construction numbers and demo numbers, so that goes to the state. The state does their stuff with. Just so everybody, you just kind of heads up, residential, or new construction was 28,500,000. Residential was 8,400,000. Commercial was, I'm rounding, but commercial was 20 million. Demo cost altogether was about $2.5 million. So a net effect about, we're around about $26 million. If the number doesn't change with the state, there'd be a levy increase of 1.3%, but that's all subject to change once the state gets in. So the planning and building people are very busy. Out of that $20 million, it's related to the commercial. $19 million is related to TIF projects. Just North Point was at almost 10.3, Basis at 2.2, River Place, there's a dental office, I believe, and that's at 6.6. So part of demo is, the Bloom isn't a demo number. So that's some of the bigger things that happened for 2020, for the current year assessment. So.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Anything else from staff? Move to adjourn?
I will move to adjourn.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
All right. Yeah, one